everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And if you can't tell, my voice is just a little bit shot because, well, we're actually going to cover it first. It is the women's Catsketball team and their big win over number 4 in the country, Iowa. Beat them within the last couple of seconds, 84-83. There was a little bit of a foul on the back end, but it was after the buzzer. And after that was settled, the Cats finally secured a gargantuan upset. Sandstorm was played. I obviously am having a little bit of issue talking right now. It's a great scene here. I'm having trouble talking in a good way. And this is a game that, man, I don't think we led until that last minute. I think we may have trailed the entire game.
Pretty much. From what I could tell, I was multitasking watching this game. And so from what I could tell, most of the game, it seemed like K-State was either down by a decently sizable margin or like fighting its way back in. Like they only had, from what I recall, a handful of leads. If you go through the ESPN like score track, there were several times that K-State got it down to like within one. They took the lead briefly in the 50s and tied it a few times, but then after that, they didn't take the lead until there was hardly any time left. And it was because they took the 82-81 lead with like a minute to go ish. And then they take that 80-43 lead with 4 seconds left. So all in all, they maybe led for like 30 seconds in this game.
They
like
didn't,
if that.
Yeah, they didn't lead for long. We're doing this so soon after that they don't have the stats up. They don't have the individual stats up. But what I can tell you is Serena Sundell played through. She absolutely gutted it out because I believe it was in the first quarter. She got taken down pretty hard off let's just say a questionable play by one of Iowa's players. She got knocked down, started grabbing at her throat, and then for a good maybe 2 or 3 minutes afterwards, looked like she was going to throw up. But after that, she really gutted through the rest of the game, was the leader that we really expect Serena Sundell to be. And one of the surprise performances is not necessarily Gabby Gregory, because we're used to her performing at such a high level. But Sarah Shimazzi came out of absolutely nowhere and was lethal from 3. She had 18 points and all were threes. And I don't think she missed many either. I can remember her missing 2.
She shot 60% from 3, 6 of 10 from 3 was her final stat line there.
Yeah, that's still amazing from 3. And it was a gritty. I know this sounds like coach speak, but it was a remarkably gritty victory, because there was never a time that we felt really comfortable. There was never a time that Iowa felt comfortable either. Even when they got out to, I think their largest lead was maybe by 10 or 11. It was double digits. But, the Midi Cats, the women's Catsketball team, fought through adversity at home. Sandstorm was played. The environment was great. Students showed up. When everyone got really into it, it got loud. I honestly thought there would be a court storming at one point, because there were students who were talking about storming the court because, it's number 4 in the country. But yeah, I don't think we can really overstate how big a victory this is.
Yeah, absolutely massive, especially when you consider that this game was originally scheduled to kind of be like this marquee showdown between arguably the 2 best players in women's college basketball at the moment. But at least 2 of the best, I should say.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark and then Ayoka Lee. But Ayoka Lee being injured for this game kind of took some of the shimmer away from it. And it just um, kind of crept up, I think, a little bit more than if Aoka Lee had been healthy and been able to play in this game. Aoka Lee being healthy is an interesting hypothetical as well, because
Yeah.
then it makes you wonder,
Do we
does
wax
KSA
this
win by
team?
does KSA win by even more if Aoka Lee is healthy? And I think that's an interesting question to ask, but I'm not really sure how true that is. But I I was thoroughly impressed with this team, and the broadcast during the game. They weren't 100% sure from what I could tell, but they were indicating that this was probably the highest ranked win for K-State women's basketball ever. Um, Last year they took down number 10 Baylor, but they seemed to indicate that taking down AP number 4 Iowa was the highest ranked win for K-State women's basketball of all time. Which that might be true. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say it as if it is because that sounds cool.
That
But
benefits our narrative.
yes, it does. So I really only got to truly watch about the last 2.5 minutes, like fully, and be like completely undistracted. But I was very pleasantly surprised, because I think that the big question mark coming into this season with the women's team was, were they gonna really stand a shot without Aoka Lee? And this game proves without a doubt that this is not a team on life support without Aoka Lee.
Mm-mm.
The addition of Gabby Gregory is absolutely massive. And they are a team to be reckoned with in the Big 12 this upcoming season. Like the calculus just shifted a lot for expectations this year for women's basketball. I mean,
Yeah.
everything just changed.
Yeah. And it's really insane. Like it's a nutty victory. It really is. And we could probably spend the next 20 minutes just coming up with different superlatives for how big a win this is. But the last thing I'll say is similar to what you said. This isn't a team on life support. You have a lot of pieces. You have Serena Sundell, who's probably one of the best distributors in the Big 12, if not the country. And you have Sarah Shamatzi coming on as a deep threat. Not, well, wires crossed again, as a threat from three. You have
A threat
Gabby,
from deep.
a threat from deep, yeah. And then you have Gabby Gregory, who's just a good all rounder, and a bunch of the Glenn twins played serviceably, even though, was it Jalen or Briley got into foul trouble?
That was Briley.
Yeah, Briley got a little bit of foul trouble, but this Eliza Maupin's coming on, and once she figures it out with her athleticism, the sky is her ceiling is Mars. It's
Yeah.
Oh, this
Yeah.
isn't this is such an exciting team. It's such an exciting team.
Yeah. There is so much to like here. I mean, Gabby Gregory going for 24, getting 12 of 14 at the free throw line. Getting the announcer's curse late as well, because what the color commentator for ESPN Plus, she was talking about how Gregory was like 10 of 10 at that point in the game, and then she misses like her very next free throw. I was like,
Yeah, that
of course,
sounds
you got to
about
say it.
right.
Yeah. And Gabby Gregory gets to 24, yet went 0 of 6 from three, which in the early goings, the three ball had been an effective weapon for her, going 4 of 11, so 36% against Wisconsin, then 2 of 4 against Central Arkansas. She's established herself as probably the go-to scorer on this team, although Serena Sundell also had 24. Did it a little bit more efficiently, although she went 1 of 7 from three, but 9 of 19 from the field, 5 of 7 at the line. I mean, Serena Sundell, like we know that she's legit at this point. She
She
is
also
really.
keeps getting beat up for no
I
reason.
know,
We'll
yeah,
talk about
big,
this in the next game, or I guess the
yeah,
previous game, but you know what I
yeah.
mean.
Big Ten schools hate this point guard, but I mean, it was really, the show was Serena Sundell, Gabby Gregory, and Sarah Shamatzi. And then after that, everybody else was just kind of chipping in where they could. But just, I mean, a fantastic game, borderline perfect. And Caitlin Clark, even though it felt like we subdued her for the most part, she still gets 27 and 10 rebounds with 7 assists. So Caitlin Clark of Iowa still gets hers. I mean, she went 6 to 17 from the field, 2 of 7 from three, but 13 to 16 at the free throw line. She was getting to the line at will, really, in this game. But I mean, I mean, beating the number 4 team in the country this early on in the year with several new faces, and still gelling and learning to live without Aoka Lee. It's an unbelievably impressive win from Jeff Mitty and the women's basketball team. I mean, this makes them a almost must see television for K-State fans at this point. Even without Aoka Lee, because then you can just consider next year when Yoki is back. You can only hope that Gregory has another year of eligibility. I don't think she does.
She may have a COVID year.
I think that actually might be true. She may have a COVID year. And if things go well this year, then maybe she uses that. Because at that point, then this team truly is like
That's a nightmare squad.
that's like a borderline Big 12 frontrunner squad right there. Now I won't go quite as far as saying that, I guess, but that'd be a very, very, very talented squad. But I mean, I think that you and I can both agree that we didn't expect a victory against
No,
Iowa.
no, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of expected us to get waxed.
Yeah, I think we'd be lying. Yeah, you and I both if we sat here and said that we thought that this would be the result, but they got it out and get a huge win. Cannot be overstated how big this win is. And K-State, I think they highlighted at the end of the broadcast, the difference was points off turnovers. K-State had like 22 or something like that to Iowa's 8. That proved big down the stretch. But K-State, in terms of efficiency, didn't really shoot that well. They shot 41% from the field, 30% from three. Not phenomenal, really. But they made their free throws. Even though they made fewer than Iowa did. Iowa had 6 more makes at the free throw line, 7 more attempts. But K-State, what a game for the Mini Cats.
What a game. Yeah, and we're gonna have to work backwards for the the women's Catsketball team. The other game that they had this week was, oh wait, no, it wasn't this week. It was last week. It was last Friday. That
Yeah.
was, man, that's weird to think about. It wins eyes so quick. But on Veterans Day, up in American Family Field in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is the Brewers Stadium, the Midi Cats went up against the, oh boy, it's a struggle. The Midi Cats went up against the Wisconsin Badgers, who, man, before they ended up winning, or K-State ended up winning, I should say, 77 to 63, really running away with it in the fourth quarter. But man, Wisconsin was throwing elbows, man. Wisconsin was mean.
Yeah, it was uncalled for, to say the least. They because I remember it wasn't really commented on that much. I remember I was at the laundromat doing laundry and I like had like my earbuds in, was like watching this game while like my laundry was going. And like the Big Ten Network announcers, I remember like their forward just like very like blatantly throws a wild elbow at Serena Sundell. And they're just like, oh yeah, that's not malicious. That's just a normal part of the game. And to me, like just seeing it, it felt like in that moment, I was like that seemed a little dirty to me. And she ultimately played through it after having to take a couple minutes on the sideline. But I mean, yeah, this was a big win for K-State because they went down early. And after the first quarter, they were trailing 23 to 13. And it wasn't looking good for a while. At one point, they were down 27 to 14. But K-State clawed their way back into this game, cut the deficit to 3 by half. And then by the end of the third quarter, it was tied, and then they exploded in the fourth quarter. Had a massive fourth quarter, went on a huge run at one point, and by the end, they end up winning by 14. So fantastic game for the Midi Cats. to show a lot of perseverance and grit in a very strange environment, playing in a literal
Baseball
baseball park.
stadium.
Like that unusual at best. And then take down a Big Ten opponent. Granted, Wisconsin was picked to finish, I think, second to last in the Big Ten, but regardless, that's a non-conference Power Five win in a really weird space. So there, that counts for something, and it still goes in the W column. Obviously, not as big as the Iowa win that they just had, which is why we put it out of chronological order,
Yeah.
just because the Iowa win is really big enough to tee off the show. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's a big time win. Gabby Gregory had 25 in this game. Serena Sundell had 17. Serena Sundell, 7 assists to 2 turnovers in this game as well. Then Bradley Glenn added 4 steals. Sarah Shimatzi had 3 steals. And then Jalen Glenn added 16 points off the bench and 31 quality minutes. And then Gabby Gregory and Serena Sundell were both each 1 rebound away from a double-double. So really, really nice performance. And they kept turnovers pretty low, just 12. Maybe I'm saying that just relative to the men's team because of how much they've been turning it over. But
Yeah.
um, what are your thoughts on the on this game, Ace?
It's another example to me of the core we have being solid because that, and it's also another example of this team not being one to give up. I mean, last year, I'm not going to say we ever gave up because I don't think that's true, but there were times when, whenever we got into a rut, it didn't feel like we could get out. Look at the Texas Tech game and the KU game in Lawrence last year. The ones in Lubbock and then Lawrence, I should say. The games where we started slow and then we just couldn't dig ourselves out of the hole. This one we ended up going in the first quarter, we ended up being down 23-13. And then, we end up winning every single quarter afterwards and exploding in the fourth. This is a team that it doesn't have any quit in it. And Gabby Gregory scoring 25, Serena Sundell 17. If those two constantly go off and keep their current level of play, we only really need one other player a game to contribute and get into double digits. For Wisconsin, it was Jalen Glenn off the bench. For Iowa, it was Sarah Shimatzi. And Sarah Shimatzi actually started in the Wisconsin game. She was only 1 for 7. But, this core, especially Gregory and Sundell, it's lethal. It's a great core.
Yeah, they are showing to be a very dynamic scoring duo, which is exactly what this team needed, is someone to step up and fill the scoring void left by Ayoka Lee. And if they can get to the point where they have Serena Sundell doing as good or better than she did last year, Gabby Gregory doing what she's doing, and then just get one more role player to have a good game every night, then this is going to be a very dangerous team to stop. I mean, it doesn't have to be Sarah Shimatzi every night. It can be one of the Glenn twins. It could be Emily Ebert. It could be Eliza Maupin when she's ready. There's plenty of people. I don't really care who's scoring a lot. I just
Yeah,
want someone to do it.
just
But
just score, baby.
yeah, but no, the versatility I think is a big thing to know early. And they're going to deal with a ton of adversity early in the season. They already have been. So it's been very satisfying to see them be able to fight through it and get to one of the most well-earned 3-0 records that I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, and we got to this 3-0 record after the Fort Hayes exhibition that scared me. I was at that game. That wasn't a fun one. There was a
Yeah.
lot of times it was just there was a lot of questions. It's a
Yeah.
lot of questions.
Yeah. 64-63. Or 74
74,
63.
63.
Yeah. That a lot closer than that should have been. And they did pull away, but that also indicates that the game was
Ever
fairly
close.
close. Yeah, it was fairly close for a while, but they have at least thus far figured it out. I want to see this Jeff Mini team peak at the right time.
Yeah.
Which it's hard to do that again after beating number 4 Iowa, but they'll hopefully have more opportunities down the stretch because they're going to be playing great teams like Texas and Iowa State and Baylor multiple times each this year. Iowa State in particular, the state of Iowa, just unbelievable in women's basketball right now.
Yeah.
So already took down one of them. Gonna have to try and get payback for Iowa State for last year in Bramlage. But this team's potential right now, they've displayed that it is through the roof. And my expectations are raised at this point. I because we were kind of questioning before the season that this team is going to make the tournament, March Madness, and I think that we can safely say that they should
He
at this
should.
point. If they're going to beat Iowa, no reason that they shouldn't be able to make it to the NCAA tournament. Because NCAA tournament will be filled with a lot of teams that are nowhere near as good as Iowa. So, not because Iowa is a really good team.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So after those two games, the next game that we play is actually the day this comes out. In a genius move of scheduling, we play three times in what, 5 days? Wait, yeah, we play three times in 4 days, and you ended up saying it was what, 6 times in 9 days?
yeah, they have an absolute gauntlet through Thanksgiving. Because they take down Iowa, and then they play at Iowa Thursday, November 17th at 8 p.m. It was a little bit after 8, actually.
Yeah.
More like 8:30. And they then turn around and less than 24 hours later host UTRGV at 6:30 on November 18th, Friday. And then a little under 2 days later, they host Utah Tech. And then they get uh, probably a day or two off and they travel to the Virgin Islands. And then they're going to play 3 games in 3 days against Clemson, Northern Arizona, and Arkansas in the Paradise Jam, which is a great opportunity. But
It's also
chart it all
terrifying.
out, when you chart it all out, they are playing 6 games in 9 days, which is a heavy burden. I don't know why we're playing games on back-to-back days. Maybe they're trying to prepare for the Paradise Jam, but why do back-to-back with Iowa? I mean, coming off the emotional high of that victory, that's a lot to rebound for tomorrow. That's a
Yeah.
so we'll hopefully it's not a letdown game. But hey, if you're gonna start out a 9-day stretch of 6 games, better start out with a win over the fourth ranked team in the country because uh, that's probably the hardest game out of the way. So
Yeah. Yeah. That might well be the hardest team that we'll face. But yeah, next up is the men's Catsketball team, and they had two games since we last recorded. They also had a game on Veterans Day last week, and that was up against the Cal Golden Bears. This one, K-State ended up winning 63 to 54. But well, first off, the Cal fan who really thought he could talk, it was really satisfying hearing him not talk anymore. That was awesome. But I'm sorry, he was annoying. But he wasn't even annoying in the way that he was good at trash talking. He actually sucked at trash talking. But like he really thought he was good. He was one of those. But
wow.
I digress. K State K State ended up winning 63 to 54. And Cal's not a great team. They're not. They lost to UC Davis for the first time. I think that was UC Davis's first time beating them in something like 10, 15 years or something like that. May have been more.
Yeah.
But it was it was a game that had a lot of slow moments, was probably a lot closer than it actually should have been because we had lulls in scoring where like for as exciting as this team can be, as exciting as it can get, there are times, at least so far, every single game, where it kind of feels like the entire team is taking a nap and it kind of saps the energy out of not only the team but the crowd. Maybe that's looking ahead a bit too much to the UKC game. But The starting five was Keontae Johnson, KJ, ended up playing 33 minutes, 16 points, a block, a steal, assist, 9 boards, so one away from a double double. Then, of course, Keys played 34 minutes. Marquise Noel played 34 minutes, 13 points, 7 assists, 3 steals, including a bunch of like really sick, stylish passes because that's just what Marquise does.
Yep.
Naquan Tomlin, the guy with the highest ceiling on the entire team, played 26 minutes, 11 points, 2 blocks, 1 steal, and a couple yams.
Yeah, obviously he and Marquise had the big highlight dunk that made it onto the Sports Center top 10, which we'll have another comment about Sports Center top 10 with Marquise Noel a little later. But
Yeah. And then Cam Carter played 20 minutes, 4 points, had foul trouble, got 4 fouls. And then David Gasson, 14 minutes, 3 boards, 3 turnovers, 2 points. So not a great day for Gasson, but you have the bench players.
yeah. Uh Tyker Green played 20 minutes and had 8 points, 3 of 6 from the field, 1 of 4 from three, 3 rebounds, no assists, and 1 turnover. So didn't really stuff the stat sheet, but did what he needed to do. Did he catch a lob in this game?
I think he did, yeah.
I think he's got one in every game thus far. I don't remember exactly. He may not have against KC, but Tyke Green has been a welcome addition thus far. Desi Sills played 29 minutes, had 4 points, 1 of 4 from the field, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, and then a block and a steal. No assists and no turnovers for Desi Sills, which is interesting. Ish Masood only played 9 minutes. He made a three, and that was all. He shot 20% from the field, 33% from three, had 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 turnovers and a steal. And then Abayomi Agiola Bebe had 2 points on 1 of 4 from the field, 2 rebounds, 2 fouls, an assist, 2 turnovers. So not earth-shattering numbers from the bench players there. Tyke Green played a solid game. We didn't see Dorian Finister in this game either. Desi Sills a little bit underwhelming with 29 minutes of action. But then again, the team really got carried by their stars with Keontae Johnson, Marquise Noel, and Naquan Tomlin leading the charge in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that's something that this team will have to learn to do because it seems like, and granted, KJ is an amazing player. Keontae Johnson is an absolutely amazing player. But it seems like at this point, whenever we're down, it seems like he's the one that has to bail us out, except for Marquise on the 4 point play. But it's either him or KJ that are constantly bailing us out of holes, which, that isn't bad in the early stages. You just again want to see one more player consistently contributing. It's like how we talked about with the women's squad. You have Sundell and Gregory, but there's always at least one third. Like there's always a third player that's always contributes double digits. This time it was Naquan, but even then he went a little bit quiet. It we just This is a team that it can't afford to go quiet, or at least as quiet as it did in the middle of the second half. You're not going to win games like that. The reason why Cal probably didn't beat us is because we recovered a little bit, and also Cal is bad.
Yeah, Cal is not a good team. But yeah, I think you're right. That's not a sustainable way of playing games. You can't get up by 20 and let the lead get cut to 1. That's just completely unacceptable. 15 turnovers, just 9 assists for K-State in this game. Coming off of a 25 assist performance, it was a little bit disappointing to see assists that low. They did force 22 turnovers of Cal and had 19 points off turnovers, which is good. They had 5 fast break points as well, including the massive dunk on the behind the back pass from Marquise Noel and Naquan Tomlin, which that's the upside of this team. While they definitely go through major offensive lulls where they really just get in a rut and just cannot get anything going. When they are firing on all cylinders, they are so much fun to watch. I mean, when they get into transition, this is such an athletic team, and every time that they get into transition, they're headed down the floor. I fully expect an unbelievable dunk or alley oop, or just something crazy to happen.
Yeah.
And more than often, it actually does.
Yeah.
So
So you're not
my
wrong. You're not
yeah,
wrong for
that gets
expecting it.
reinforced. But yeah, I was pleased with some of this game, but left worried with some of it. I'm I'm not gonna hit the panic button on a road win against the Power Five, even if this Power Five team is bad. They just lost to UC San Diego. And they're now 0-3. Um, they're not a good team, but it's still hard to go on the road and win anywhere. Especially when you have as many new faces as we have. Then you have still have a guy like Desi Sills that's literally been on campus for a month at the most.
Yeah.
Keontae Johnson, you still got here late-ish. Or at the very least wasn't really integrated as early, just because of his later commitment.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of room for this team to grow, and if you're gonna have growing pains, now is the perfect time to do it. So I yeah, there's frustrating moments with this team, but I mean that's what it's like watching a team grow up in real time and learn how to play together in the best way possible. There's going to be growing pains, and there's going to be moments that make you want to rip your hair out, but the highs are so high with this team. They
Yeah.
they flash their potential very often, and that also rang true for the KC game. But I don't want to get into that unless you're ready for it.
I'm ready to go for it. Yeah. The next game was a home game up against the UKC. It's so weird not calling them UMKC. So used to that. The UKC Ruse, the K-State Wildcats ended up overtaking them 69-53. Very nice score. And it was, this was another game that, well, yeah, no, we'll start with this. I'm not gonna lie to you, it kind of felt like nap time for the majority of the game. Like the middle of the game kind of felt like nap time to me. And I think it was because of the amount of media timeouts and also the amount of regular timeouts and also the amount of fouls. It all just kind of stacked up on one another to where it seemed like the clock was moving at in 5 second intervals. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was a bit of a snoozer, which is a shame for a team that's so exciting. But the starters were KJ. He ended up playing 35 minutes, 19 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 steals. Cam Carter had himself a coming out game. He played 35 minutes, 16 points, 3 boards, was 4 of 7 from three, and was lights out when we needed him to be from three. Marquise Noel played 34 minutes, 9 points, 1 of 4 from three, 4 on his free throws, 6 assists, only 1 turnover and 3 steals. Naquan Tomlin, 26 minutes, 9 points, 7 boards, 4 turnovers, and 3 steals. Then finally, to wrap up the starting five, it was Abayemi Ijiola, who was unfortunately 0 of 5 from the field, but got 3 boards, played really good defense. Abayemi is kind of, the defensive specialist as the big. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Selton Miguel's role last year, and that they were exceptional on defense and offense was a bit hit or miss. I know they play different positions. I'm well aware, but it's the stylistic comp, really.
Yeah, that's fair. And then, of course, you can't talk about KJ and Marquise without talking about the between the legs pass from Marquise to Keontae for one of the most thunderous dunks that has ever been heard in Bramlage. I
Yam.
mean, that was a yam. I mean, that in terms of ferocity is right up there with the Cardi windmill dunk. Trying to think about others in terms of like violent dunks. There's probably a Bill Walker dunk that I'm not thinking of, although I think maybe the one I'm thinking of happened in Baylor, like on the road. But regardless, it was one of the most violent dunks that I've seen from a K-State player in a very long time. And then the pass was just as good. It's happening once a week at this point. That was a treat to watch. And then Keontae Johnson opened the game as well with a excellent alley-oop dunk where he had to like kind of reach back for it and bring it forward. Keontae Johnson's just such an unbelievable athlete. I mean, if he can keep churning out games like this, he's gonna really take this team somewhere.
Yeah.
Just the rest of the team does need to get a bit more consistent, which we can talk more broadly about that after I read off the bench players. Desi still was far and away the best bench player. He had 11 points on 4 of 9 shooting, 3 of 4 at the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 2 fouls, 5 assists, and 2 turnovers. David Gasson, relegated from his starting position to coming off the bench. He had 3 points in 16 minutes, made 1 field goal, 1 of 2 at the free throw line, had 6 rebounds. 4 of those rebounds were offensive rebounds, then had 3 turnovers, a block, and a steal. Tyke Green had 2 points in 6 minutes, 1 of 4 from the field. Then he also had 4 fouls in 6 minutes, which is kind of surprising. I did not notice that before. Had 1 turnover, I should say, and then 2 steals. And Dorian Finister played 2 minutes and had a single rebound, and that was it for him. Team had a really good first half offensively, 48% from the field, 43% from 3, then 8 of 9 at the free throw line. Second half, really poor offensive half, 0 of 4 from 3, 11 of 31 from the field, 35.48%. Really not a great second half at all. After a, for the most part, dominant first half. It's clear that the defense of Kansas City, as well as their size, was really throwing us off because KC, they were a huge team.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had tall guys everywhere. They really matched up with us well in that regard, which, to be fair, most teams will not be as big as KC was. So we at least don't have to worry about that. But regardless, this team has a lot of work to do in the half court offense, which a lot of people have been saying that's not like a new take or anything, but
Yeah.
it's they still obviously have a lot of work to do offensively and even defensively at times.
Yeah. And Tang gave a reason for the relative, I guess I called it nap time. I'm struggling to come up with another word. Slow, I guess, would be another way to describe it. The slow pace, the lack of energy, I think is how he put it. Apparently the flu's going around on the team. So hopefully that doesn't affect the Cayman Islands Classic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, hopefully not.
Uh,
Yeah,
for
the Cayman Islands Classic. Yeah, that's the men. The women are
the
in the
Paradise
Paradise
Jam.
Jam.
Yeah,
So
that's right. The wires are getting crossed because if I had a nickel for
understandable.
if I had a nickel for every time.
Yeah, every time a K-State basketball team in 2022 had a Caribbean island preseason invitational tournament, I'd have 2 nickels.
Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
Weird it happened twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, it definitely was a bit of a snoozer in the second half. Despite there at times being some really exciting basketball being played. To be fair, a lot of the reason that this was a snoozer at times was because it felt like we were really struggling to finish at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
Missing a lot of open layups. Just not quite finishing. There was specifically I think it was Desi Sills missed a layup on a fast break, and Naquan Tomlin
Then
was right
miss
there
the
for the
save.
putback, and then he missed the putback, and I was like, man, come on, I like that's like your thing, like you can't miss that, and that was frustrating. But I mean, regardless, they still, while playing honestly frustrating, I would say they still won by 16,
Yeah.
which is a good sign that when they're playing to a level that we know for a fact that they can do better than, they still win comfortably on the final scorecard. Granted, this game did get to single digits for a very short amount of time in the second half. It was kind of going back and forth between 8 and 10 for a while, but K-State still managed to push it out a little bit. And they also forced 22 turnovers for Kansas City. They had K-State themselves had 14. They did up their assists. They had 18 on the day. Keontae with his 6, and then Marquise with his 6 as well. Marquise right now has got to be close to leading the country in assist to turnover ratio
Yeah.
individually, because he's really only had like 1 or 2 assists or 1 or 2 turnovers in every game thus far. So it's been really great for him, and his court vision and ability to fit a pass into a tight window. Just a lot of really fun jaw-dropping moments happen when you watch the K-State men's basketball team. And there's going to be a lot of moments of frustration too. But again, we already said this. That's just kind of what's going to happen for a while with this team. But in college basketball, you just have to get hot at the right time. I mean, if you can get hot at the end of February going into March Madness, I mean, like
It's the perfect
that's
time
when
to do it.
teams that have solid regular seasons make surprise Elite Eight runs. So you just have to win like 4 games in a row to get to that point. So, I mean, I just get hot at the right time. I'm sure this team, that's a big goal of this team, is to get all of that down to a science, because if you peak too early, then you flame out once you get to the tournament. But I mean, regardless, this has been at least at times a fun team to watch. Jerome Tang, I think he put it well in his post game presser, that this team still isn't playing with the necessary intensity for the full game. Um, we a lot of it seems like 20 points is about the magic number in normal games. That didn't seem to bother them in the first regulation game that they've played, but a lot of that may have just been the excitement of that being the first game. But in the 2 games we've seen since then, once they kind of hit that 20-point lead in the second half mark, then they kind of let off the gas a little and don't seem to be as in tune. They play really good first halves from what we can tell. So I don't know what we'll see in the future, but the next few weeks will be very telling for this basketball team.
Yeah. Which, speaking of, the next time that the men's team will be playing will be in the Cayman Islands Classic. On firstly playing Rhode Island on Monday, then Nevada and Tulane on Tuesday, then to be decided on Wednesday. All of those will be on Flow Hoops, whatever that is. um, I'm sure I would obviously never advocate for this, but I'm sure that somewhere up the stream there's a way that you could find this. Maybe there's a way that you may be able to stream, just find a way to get Flow Basketball.
Yeah, you may have to sail a ways to find it, but
Yeah, just like how the Cayman Islands are a little bit away. You kind of sail the sea there.
yeah, may
But
have to dig for some buried treasure to find it. But
yeah, exactly.
there's a chance may come away with an eye patch and a peg leg. But yeah, I mean they'll play Rhode Island to start off the Cayman Islands Classic. Rhode Island is, to put it mildly, not good. They do have a win over Stony Brook, but they lost to Quinnipiac. Not a good team. The next game they have either Nevada or Tulane. I don't think the KenPom for either of those teams is particularly high. But regardless, they're still G5s worth noting. And then there's the to be determined game on Wednesday. And for that, best guess is you're probably facing LSU in that game.
Probably.
But it remains to be seen. LSU is an interesting team. I guess you could put it like that. They do share a common opponent with us, actually, because they played Kansas City and won by 11.
Mm.
So we do have that common opponent with them. So just something to keep in mind. And then also they're in a kind of similar situation as us with getting a new coach in. They actually had more roster turnover because they lost everybody.
Everyone. Yeah.
So
And we
um
actually have one of their players, but he's redshirting.
yes, no, which is a shame because he was so much fun in the exhibition. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's men's basketball. Gonna wrap it up by talking about women's volleyball. First is their matchup up against West Virginia, who's not good. We ended up sweeping them 3-0. Sets went 25-19, 25-22, and then 25-16. It, yeah, it was, there's not a lot to say because West Virginia's not good. They weren't good when we played them in Morgantown. They weren't really good here either. I mean, they're 7-18 and haven't won a Big 12 game for a reason. It's a tough scene. It's a tough scene for West Virginia.
Yeah, they are 0-14 with two matches left, one on the road against Texas Tech, and then Texas at home. So
They're not winning that one.
yeah, I guess they maybe stand a shot against Tech, but they're not beating Texas. So that you're looking at a team that is more than likely going to finish winless in Big 12 play, which is a remarkable achievement. Uh, in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Um, Notable stats. Honestly, there aren't really many.
Yeah.
Going down the line, most of K-State played fine in this game. It's more notable that West Virginia had almost as many attacking errors as they had kills. So their team hitting percentage was 1%. They played to their record. I suppose is maybe the way to look at that. But the kills were spread around for K-State. Nobody hit even close to double figures. Mackenzie Morris had 15 digs. Lauren Hinkle had 22 sets. I mean, it was a pretty short match all in all. So
Yeah.
nothing really to write home about. Sydney Bolding had 4 aces, just one error. Good for her. I have nothing else to say about this match other than we dominated a bad team.
Yeah. Which, win the ones you're supposed to, I guess. Then the next game, yeah, unfortunately, it was up against Oklahoma in Manhattan. K State ended up falling 3-1. Oklahoma won the first and second sets 25-15, then 25-23. K State won the third 25-23. Then Oklahoma won the final set 25-23. I remember in the first quarter, I think one of the referees ended up having a health issue and had to
Yeah.
leave. Um, Shame. I really hope they get well soon. But that arguably is probably the only notable thing that happened, at least from a K State perspective, this match. Because it was
Yeah.
we won a set, but this was a stinker. This
Yeah. And it was kind of a microcosm of the season, it felt like, where I think both the sets that we lost close 25-23, um, they were sets that we did lead. I think I know the fourth set we led that set late into the set and ended up blowing it. And also kind of wasted some really good performances. Sydney Bolding was fantastic, had 24 attack attempts, 11 kills, and just one error. Then also had 7 blocks. Really, really, really great day for Sydney Bolding. Elena Baca was also really good. 11 to 16 attack attempts, 11 kills, 2 errors, 8 digs, hitting 563. Aaliyah Carter had probably her best match in quite some time. And went 47 attack attempts, 18 kills, 10 errors, and 8 digs. Did have 4 receiving errors though. Then Shaylee Myers had 17 attack attempts, 7 kills, 2 errors, hitting 294. So it was all around a fairly like solid offensive night for some individuals on K-State, especially Sydney Bolding. She was pretty dominant in the middle for a few sets. But I mean, this was kind of a this was a match that K-State could not afford to lose. But we continue to see things plague them, like defense. At times just really not there. Morgan Perkins of OU hitting 667 on the day. Just absolutely dreadful numbers to allow. Um, and just ultimately like just couldn't hang on when they needed to, because they had opportunities to win this one, and they just weren't quite able to get it done. So really frustrating at this point. it's going to take a miracle for them to make it to postseason play. There's some games left, three, to be specific. So I mean, obviously you have to win out, but even if you do win out, there's no guarantee that you would get in. And I I'd say that the chances of you getting in with winning out are really slim, anyways. But
Yeah, that's the three remaining matchups are TCU in Fort Worth, Texas Tech in Manhattan next Wednesday, TCU Saturday, November 19th, and then November 26th, which is next Saturday against Baylor down in Waco. If you win out, maybe, but
yeah, because
it's
if you win out, you do at least get an away win at what will probably be a ranked Baylor squad.
yeah,
But at that point, I don't know if you've done enough. I mean, because if you go back through the season, you look at how you blew the home match to TCU, you blow a home match to KU, you blow a couple matches um at a neutral site against Creighton and Rice. I mean, you had opportunities throughout the season after starting hot to acquire more high level victories, but they performed well against teams that were objectively worse than them, performed generally poorly against teams that were objectively better than them, and then just kind of split the difference on teams that were around the level that they are.
yeah,
And that balances out to an average team that probably shouldn't be in postseason play. Maybe that changes because I mean they do have a nice road win against Iowa State, who will be in the tournament, but I just don't think this team has done enough.
yeah. I don't either. I was kind of surprised when they made the tournament last year, and they were
I
better
was too.
last year.
I was shocked that they made the tournament last year. Which to be fair, they deserved it the most the year that they were the first team out. I felt because I felt like they were a legitimately really good team that year, despite being so young. But I guess that's the frustrating thing is they were so young then, and despite that, they just haven't really improved all that much. Despite being such a young team a couple of years ago, it feels like there hasn't been a ton of development. I mean, they're kind of treading water, I guess, in that regard. Which I mean, we've had this women's volleyball discussion multiple times at this point,
Yeah,
and so I just don't know what else to say at this point other than I'm fairly disappointed with the outcome of the season. Even though the roster was slim, it's really frustrating that we didn't build a deeper and more complete team around some of the talent that we have. Because I mean, we clearly have talented players on this team, like Aaliyah Carter, who even though has been having a weird season, we do know is talented. Sydney Bolding has been really good this year. Mackenzie Morris is really good. And then Elena Baca at times has struggled, but when she's been on, she's been on. So it's frustrating that we didn't build a more complete team this year. Maybe the move to the new facility will change things, hopefully, but I guess we shall see next year. But I would imagine that most likely this team has 3 matches left for its season.
yeah. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the uh, weekly recap segment, which now leads us to everyone's favorite, the wacky segment of the week. And for this week, we are picking three current K-State athletes to go on a cross-country road trip with. Okay, genuine question. This does change my answer. Are we starting in California or are we starting in Maine?
I'm gonna say start in Maine.
Start in Maine?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, I think I am going to, with the first overall pick in the cross country road trip draft, the Kansas City Aces select Marquise Noel because we can drive through New York and he can have a little bit of a homecoming right at the beginning and then just ride with the vibes the rest of the way. Do you want to do this draft style? Do you? Probably should have
Sure.
asked, huh?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we can do this draft style.
All right, my bad.
That's fine. Okay. I thought about this long and hard. But for my first pick, I am going to take Cade Warner. Um,
That's a good pick.
Mainly because he's always touted as having one of the best football minds of any player on the team. And also he always seems to be putting like funny questions out on Twitter. So
Yeah,
I feel like he'd make a good road trip partner for that reason. So I'll 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 say Cade Warner.
that is a good one. That is a very, very good one. For the number two overall pick for me, I'm gonna pick Kobe Savage. Maybe give him a little bit of time to rest. Like we can, again, the car that I'm gonna have is basically just gonna be a nonstop hype train the entire way. Like one of us may have our adrenal glands burst just from the absolute chaotic and exciting vibes during the entire road trip. But second overall pick is Kobe Savage.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pick for you. Um so that brings me to my second pick. And I did a lot of thinking on this as well. Um Mainly considering like what sport, like if I should delve into others, or if I should just like remain in the main ones. Um and I was seriously considering adding post players for football or for basketball, I mean, but I felt like they would get really cramped sitting in the car for so long.
Yeah.
So for Naquan Tomlin's sake, I'm not drafting him because I think his knees would really hurt after this. So I will not be taking Naquan Tomlin, although I seriously considered it.
Yeah.
I am going to roll with a similarly large human, but not quite as large as a basketball post player. I'm going to say Will Howard.
You gonna play well? All right.
Yeah. And yeah, we might be able to take him through his hometown on the way through.
Downington.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great. So my final pick for my car, in order to save some of our adrenal glands, I have to pick someone who's a bit more relaxed, a bit more chill, and someone I've also talked to before. I'm gonna end up picking Christian Moore just because he's a really cool guy, really chill, really laid back. So, you know, maybe maybe he gets really annoyed with the fact that there are three. Connor, you've never been on a road trip with me. I maybe someday that'll change, but the I I'm not necessarily excitable, but if I find one thing to be excited about, I'm excited about it for like 3 hours. So I'm a very simple man. So my car is going to be me, Marquise Noel, Kobe Savage, and Christian Moore. Who's topping off your car?
Yeah. I've now taken a handful of football players, offensive football players at that. So I want to try and diversify the sports that I'm picking from. So I am rolling with Kalen Culpepper for my final choice.
That's a great choice.
Because then we get like a good pit stop in like every like broad region of the United States where you get Downington, Pennsylvania with Will, you get Memphis with Kalen Culpepper, and then you get Arizona with Cade Warner. And then I guess we get a wild card location as well. And
Yeah.
then I feel like that would be a fun group to roll across the country with. So that rounds out mine. But maybe in the future we can make a bigger car and
We'll
take
take a
more.
bus.
I will take a
Take a
bus instead.
bus.
And make like a 7 round draft or something like that.
Snake draft.
Yeah, that'd be
Fantasy
fun.
draft. You have anything else to wrap up the episode?
Um, just we did not mention, and I almost forgot, because it's been so long since it happened. But and we honestly may have mentioned this last week at this point, but the Wisconsin victory for the women's basketball team was 1000th
1000th
win
victory.
in
Oops.
program history.
Oops.
And okay, good thing I remembered that. Yeah, 1000th win in program history is a victory over Wisconsin. And then, of course, they get 1001 against Iowa. And talk about a fantastic 1001 victory. Um, just for program history. Then I think Midi got 600 as well.
Yeah.
One of the earlier games. So just a lot of milestones for the women's basketball program at this time.
Yeah. So please support the women's Catsketball team because they deserve it, and support the shows that talk about them all the time. You know, they're because the Catsketball team isn't a fad. They play all year. They don't just play whenever they beat a good team. They play all year, and they really are worthy of your support because they're a great squad. They're an exciting squad, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to contact the show, you can follow us on Twitter at Aggieville Alleycats. That's capital A, and capital C in cats. If you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at AC Edwards00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, where you can find such designs as the staff-approved Doomtang Clan, Play Sandstorm Cowards, or Neon Alleycats. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.